Hey gang, it's Maya. I have had a bad cold all week, and I haven't been sick like this in 3 or 4 years. And it's been interesting because it forces you to slow down, right, when you get sick. And I was admiring myself earlier in the week for feeling like, wow, I'm still cheerful even though I'm sick. I'm still working. I'm not using it as an excuse to hide. A lot of times when we step out into new visibility, we get sick as sort of a backlash because we broke our own rules about how visible we're allowed to be, or our old family rules about how visible or successful we're allowed to be. And so sometimes we'll get sick as part of the backlash so that we're forced to go into hiding, right? So that we're like, no, 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 I didn't mean it. We snap back to our old levels of success. And so I was really feeling like I was feeling my growth. One of the things that I love to suggest that people do is go return to something, like return to a place where you used to live, or return to a place where you have gone on vacation in the past, as a way, or go see old friends, or go to a place where you used to work, as a way for you to experience being the new you, because you need that contrast, right? So for me, being sick for the first time in 3 or 4 years, it's been an interesting way for me to see that contrast of, okay, I'm not using this sickness as a reason to hide. I did not do a Facebook Live yesterday because I was like out of reality by the end of the day. There's like a heat wave and I wasn't eating right because of the heat wave and my cold. And by the end of the day, I just sort of fell apart. And I'm like, I need to go to bed right now. So I'm not pushing through the sickness, right? And forcing myself to do something that would hurt myself more. But I'm also noticing, oh, hey, I'm not using this illness as an excuse not to keep participating. Hey, Pamela. Hi, Emily. Meg is here. So I'm sort of in a roundabout way getting to the main point that I want to talk about, which is about reclaiming your beauty and your worth. Okay. So, you know that feeling too? I had a client recently. She had gone through this big, very epic, dramatic, not on her part, she was not bringing the drama, but a dramatic situation in her home. She was living with a few different people, and she had lived with a few roommates. And then she did a lot of like this inner seeking work, like, okay, who are the right roommates? These people are moving out. Should I live alone? Right. And then the next roommates were even worse. And she was like, wait a second. So she had to really get clear on what her soul was asking of her and take measures. So she wound up moving out, and she landed in this absolutely exquisite 3-month house sit that it felt like a total miracle. But of course it was by her getting connected to her true desires, setting boundaries, communicating clearly, and taking aligned action, right? So she winds up at this gorgeous house sit and immediately gets very sick. And she said it was so amazing because through being like delirious, right, and alone, she came to some really deeper truths. Because sometimes, like, we think that when everything's perfect and we're eating our perfect diet and everything's lining up exactly so, that then we're going to have these spiritual insights because we'll be living in equilibrium and balance and all of the stuff that we all crave, right? But truthfully, when things fall apart or the shit hits the fan or you get sick, that's actually a really epic opportunity to connect to your truth. Because in those moments, like when someone dies or something burns down literally or figuratively in your life, what's left? The truth of who you are is left. And so as I've been sitting here in this sickness and admiring myself and lauding myself for not hiding, not using being sick as an excuse to hide, recognizing that I give myself plenty of time off and downtime, and my schedule is really wonderful. It's not rigorous at all. Like, look at where I'm sitting. Look at this. I've got a pond. The pond is behind me where I skinny dip, and it's beautiful. We've got like 150 acres. We call it our compound. There's 2 family homes. We have this gorgeous campsite on the property. It's like my work schedule is not rigorous, and I've consciously chosen to make it that way. So I haven't used sickness as an excuse to hide, and I haven't used it. It's not, or my body isn't getting sick just so that I cannot work. I still like working. So those were some really cool accomplishments that I noticed by returning to being sick. But I did start thinking, like, why am I sick and I haven't been sick in 3 or 4 years? And my boyfriend, he said, we're sick because he and his son were working on a job, and the man whose house they were working at had just been in the hospital for a knee replacement surgery. And my boyfriend is like, he came home with hospital germs. So I'm like, all right, but still, why was my defense down so much that I actually got sick for the first time in 3 or 4 years? Hey, Shelly, happy birthday to Shelly. And so just noticing these moments that start to come up around my being sick. And one of them could be, totally lost my train of thought. That's the other thing about being sick. I'm like, not in real reality. I'm feeling sort of disconnected. Let me gather my thought again. I got excited to see Shelly here in her birthday week. Okay, so I was able to notice some good positive things about my sickness, like, I'm not using it as an excuse, right? But I was looking at, okay, but why am I sick? And it's taken a few days. So fortunately, I've been sick for a few days. But I really kept getting the call to sit in quiet contemplation and have what I like to call an encounter with myself. Now, we love to go out in the world and make all these changes. Like, people are always like, I want to make these changes. I wish my husband would show up differently. I wish my job would show up differently, right? But really, the answers are all within us. And so I understood, okay, I'm sick. If I want to get an answer to the question, why am I sick? I need to go within. And around this time, someone in my private group sent me a photograph of herself at like 1.5 years old. And she's new to my community, so I wasn't sure if she knew this, but one of the exercises that I do is have people find a photograph of themselves from when they're little. Like, can you think of a photograph of yourself when you look at it and you're like, God, there she is, like this pure, perfect, beautiful, untarnished, right? Beautiful little girl or little boy before the world got to you. Do you have that photograph? Or maybe it's a memory of a time before you feel like the world got to you and like tainted you, made you messed up, sullied you in some way. Because do you have that feeling? I see this with all of my clients. No matter how beautiful they look on the outside, no matter how successful their life looks on the outside, you might look at some of the women that I work with and go, what? How could she ever possibly be thinking that she's not worthy and beautiful? But you know what I'm talking about, right? That place almost where you feel dirty or like you missed your chance or something's wrong with you. So this one of the exercises that I use, especially in my workshops, is having people find a photograph of themselves when when you can look at it and go, yeah, beautiful, worthy, perfect, before the world got to this version of you, right? You know what I'm talking about. So this woman who's in my private group, I don't know that she just joined my group, so I don't think she knows about this necessarily. It might be something that's come up in conversation, but she found a photograph of herself at about 18 months and she sent it to me and she's like, look at this. And I was like, that is just, it's such a perfect thing. So it's like time for me to revisit this. And when I first started sending out newsletters to my list about 5 years ago. Yeah, I think it was 5 years ago. Yeah, 2013. That's one of the first newsletters that I sent, was like, here's a picture of me. Find a picture of yourself. Like, don't I look perfect? Right? Right? So what happened to that version of ourselves? So all of this is happening at the same time, right? You know, life will send you messages, right? Do you feel like your soul, God, you'll be getting these messages. So it's a matter of learning how to interpret them. So this is me in the past week of being sick. Like, okay, why am I sick? Let me have a private encounter with myself. Then this woman in my group sends me a photograph of herself when she's really little that she just found and was like, God, look at her. Look at her. What happened to her? And so I thought, I need to revisit this newsletter and I'm going to send out a new version of it to my list today. So all of that is happening. And I sit down this morning because I have some quiet time and I think, let me just have this encounter with myself and really ask the question, like, why am I sick? What's going on? And often the language of your soul is not words, it'll be images or feelings. So I'm sitting there and I get this feeling, like this knot inside me that's like, I don't want to touch it. I don't want to be with it. I want to keep doing, and I don't want to be with it. But as I make myself sit there and have this conscious encounter, I realize that there's this part of me that's running, that's always trying to do more and be more. But if I look at that little girl picture of me, that little girl who I was before the world fucked with me, right? So think back to that time before you got messed with. That little girl didn't have that knot. And it might have started very young for you. And honestly, I think it starts for a lot of us in utero, right? Whatever our mother was going through or any stressors, we felt all of her emotions. So there's like tracks, emotional tracks, neurological tracks laid down on you before you were even born, okay? And a lot of what happened to you that messed with you happened before you had verbal understanding of how the world works. So a lot of the meaning that you made and a lot of the emotional experience that you have, the patterning that you have, happened before you were even aware that it was happening. Fortunately, there are tools, just like this simple awareness tool that I did with myself today, of like having an encounter with myself. So it became this very energetic, emotional, sacred site. Hey, Karen, Maura's here, Diane, Tanya's here. Hey, Aaron, wow, it's a great crowd. Marion, hi. Marion Morasuti, what a great name. So I was doing this encounter with myself this morning after all of this input from people I work with, from, you know, like life, me getting sick, right? So you can start to see how you'll get all of these messages and you have to figure out how to interpret them. And in fact, I have to say that's a lot of what I do, because people are like, what does this mean? And so a lot of the work that I'll do with clients is helping them to have an encounter with themselves and then interpret the language of their soul that's speaking to them in this sacred site or spiritual site, or there's another word that I can't think of right now. So there I was having this encounter with myself, like, why am I sick? Knowing that today I'm going to be writing this newsletter about reclaiming your worth and your beauty and that perfection you had before life tampered with you. And I felt like this knot inside me in my chest that I just didn't want to sit with. But the longer I sat with it, the more I noticed that it was just needing some kind of acknowledgement, and that I got sick so that I would stop rushing around and doing things constantly and pay attention to it and like be forced to have this quiet time. I scratched my cornea. I just have one contact lens in. I have a headache. I haven't wanted to drink coffee. You know how when you get sick, like it's this cascade, this domino effect, and everything falls apart? But it can be a tool that you use to get to this deeper truth of yourself. And so that's what I was doing this morning, and it just seems so epically perfect. So think back to a time before you felt like the world had messed with you. Maybe you have a photograph of yourself at that time. Inside you resides that core, like that golden, molten core of perfection from before life messed with you, and before you started believing that you were fucked up somehow, that there's something wrong with you, and before all those emotional tracks got laid down in your body where you feel like there's something wrong with you. I am telling you, everybody I work with just feels like, oh, there's this one hidden thing about me that I want no one to know, because it'll prove that there's something wrong with me. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to talk about it. But the truth is, after you have that kind of an encounter with yourself, you get to this like golden central, it's like a spiritual encounter with your true self, okay? So one of the things that I do as a personal liberation coach is help try to provide the atmosphere, the safe atmosphere, the energetic container, the space where you can have that experience. But you can also just try to explore it on your own right now. So when did you feel perfect? When did you look at yourself like when your baby was born, right? And you're like, oh my God, look at this perfect little being. That was you. That was you. So I want you to take this approach with any area of your life where you feel like, ugh, it's ugly. I'm ugly. No, I'm not worthy. I can't have the success or the love or the sex or the happiness, the joy or the peace that I desire. Because why? Because I'm not deserving of it, because I'm not worthy of it, because there's something wrong with me. Now, the story might play out differently in your mind. You might put different words to it, but you know the feeling that I'm describing. So how do you get back to feeling worthy and deserving? Well, the only way out is through. So to just describe my experience this morning a little bit more, that encounter of like, I'm sick, why am I sick? And I'm sitting there and I feel that knot inside me, like, ugh, I don't want to touch it, right? That's your personal ecology, that place where you just feel like something's wrong with you. And for most people, it feels unworthy, you're unlovable, there's something a little bit disgusting about you. It's like, ugh, creepy. So sitting there with that knot, I started to get this sense of, I'm not paying attention to it because I want to do so that I can escape it. But if I sit here with it, it starts to dissolve and it starts to feel like this golden energy that's emanating from me. And I started to get the message that if I could live from feeling that way, which means I have to slow down, I have to get really quiet, I have to do more contemplation. So, okay, I'm going to go offline for all of Labor Day weekend. And I found online a place, actually, I'm looking to do some live workshops in Westchester County. They do like prayer hours, and it's a former convent. So I found a time I'm going to go there and just sit in the evening. They have this candlelight prayer hour, but I see that I need more of this. And I already meditate twice a day for 20 minutes a day. I'm in nature all the time, but sometimes your soul will require more. So if you're walking around going, what's wrong with me that I don't feel better, and you're trying to fight off and do more to earn your worth, I want to invite you to slow down and to have that encounter with yourself, because like I said, the only way out is through sitting quietly with yourself. And again, there are tools, and if you feel lost, I can help you. There are people who can help you. There are tools to help you have an encounter in a way that's productive so that you don't get stuck in like, ugh, no, that knot, or however it feels for you. It's going to feel, and the imagery is going to be totally different for you. But there are methods. So I'm going to be sending out a newsletter, and I'll write a post about this later today too. Aaron says, hey Nadine. Aaron says, I'm pretty focused on looking forward into the beautiful future I'm headed towards. Absolutely. Now, Aaron, and this is for everybody, here's the thing, me too. And every new level of success or deeper love that we're opening ourselves to, we will probably, this just always happens, I don't think it's avoidable because we're human, we'll always run into our old baggage, our old shit that's going to start surfacing. So there are times when it's like the coast is clear, we're coasting forward. Absolutely. That is actually a place that I'm in right now. And I got sick, and I can see how to really catapult myself to the next level, whether that's in anything that's visible on the outside, or just the way that I feel at ease with myself on the inside, or my deeper connection with my boyfriend, or just like a new way of encountering life. There's going to be an encounter of some of that old shit coming up, because it's just a deeper layer of healing and getting close to that original you before the world tampered with you. Let me see, reclaiming your beauty and worth and other deep truths. I'm just going to look at what I posted, because I feel like if you tuned in, you probably wanted to you wanted to hear about the specific things that I said. But I guess this is my question to you. Do you feel like you need to do things to either escape this bad feeling that there's something wrong with you or that you don't have full worth? Or do you feel like you're doing things either to avoid that or to prove and earn your worth? Okay? I'm not even going to say anything more to you about it. I think I just like sit with that. I'll write a post later today about it. But, basically it's just, I worked with a client yesterday, and she's been talking. She looks so successful on the outside, and she's great, and she just signed up to work with me and was like, I've never spent this kind of money on myself before. And it felt really epic. And so, of course, taking that step, some of her stuff came up, and she's confronting her self-worth. And one of the things, there are two things that we did. One, I'm going to leave you with like, let's just open the cauldron. We're going to open the can of worms, and you're going to like walk with it and sit with it and live with it, because a lot of your insights are going to come from being with yourself in the stuff. But the other thing was we played with, she's like, ugh, I'm going to make mistakes. And, you know, it's going to annoy the people that I'm in business with and in my family, you know, as I start experimenting with some new ways of doing things. And she said, I've always avoided that because I don't like the feeling when I screw up and then other people are like, hey, you screwed up. And so we played with, and this is one thing that I'm going to just give you, a tool that I'm going to give you, like, what if you could be like, yeah, blame me. Like, I screwed up and I'm human, not in a way to push away and to act arrogant, but in a way of like, what if you had permission to screw up? And, you know, with this client, I noticed with her, she was like, oh, am I worth this kind of investment? And then by making the investment her shit, her confidence and her worth stuff came up. We worked with it. And then she starts to believe that she's worth it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're always waiting until we feel worthy, until we feel confident, until we're not scared anymore to take the bold move. But you get that feeling of worth by taking the bold move. I had a client who was like, oh, I want more romance from my husband. And we were joking about all these ways, like, oh, what if, I was like, what do you want him to say? She's like, I want him to say, like, you're so pretty when you cry, or you're so pretty when you're mad. Like, she just wanted that to feel feminine, not to have him try to change anything or right. But instead of, so we joked about that, but instead of having her work on trying to make her husband different, we got her experimenting with hairstyles and clothing. And you might have heard me tell this story before because I love this story. There was this one day when she decided, instead of just wearing her same old mom jeans, that she was going to put on this orange dress that she had impulse bought. And she walked downstairs into the living room where her husband was waiting, and his jaw dropped open. She was like, okay. She felt gorgeous. Why? Not because she owned her beauty and her worth, got scared, but put it out in front of her husband, and then got the response she wanted. But she wasn't waiting for him to like be like, you're beautiful, to act beautiful. So there's a big part of claiming our beauty and our worth that means stepping out when we're scared and walking through our inner feelings of unworthiness and even ugliness. Kimberly Masters is here. Hi, gang. So I think I'm just going to leave you with that, even if they're sort of like, you know, like I said, I'm sick. I just have one contact lens in. It's hot. I'm not sure how A to B that I walked you today, but I feel like I did with my client yesterday, leave you with sort of this like, okay, let's just open up the conversation, open it up with yourself, have that encounter with yourself. Don't shy away from it. And see what feelings of beauty and worth come up from you having that encounter with that part of yourself that doesn't feel worthy, that doesn't feel beautiful. All right. Okay. Till soon.